Resident Evil Requiem just came out and it's pretty good. The newest game in this franchise just dropped, and as someone who has never played a Resident Evil game, I had a blast with this. It's gripping, horrifying, and complex. Everything you would want out of a horror video game. And the further I got into it, something became apparent. There is one key thing that makes this game so great. Something that I think may surprise some of you guys. So we are going to take a deep dive into this game. We are not going to treat this as a game in this franchise, but as a singular story on its own grounds. Kicking off with the events of the story, the complexity of the characters, and finally the world of this game. To understand why this game is such a miracle and to find out what single element connects all of these three key points of this video essay. The story kicks off in the way you would expect. On the surface, it's relatively simple. It's a normal zombie apocalypse, there's a hospital, throw in a bad guy, and you got a game. But it goes so much deeper than just that. Resident Evil Requiem deals with themes about trauma, legacy, protection, and I would even argue actions have consequences. It's a story that is rich in its thematic undertones and makes the story a masterclass in its structure. We start at the FBI headquarters. We see our main protagonist, Grace Ashcroft, get informed about another killing. Her boss tells her to go investigate. There's just one problem. This is the same place where her mother was killed. And when she gets there, it's more haunting than an actual zombie attack. We see her go through the hotel where she lost everything. But it's not just that. The hotel has been abandoned for 8 years, so grime is everywhere. Worms are in utensils, even the toilets are a disaster. Then the story shifts and you see a note, telling her to go to room 204. Once Grace gets there, she realizes someone has been stalking her and freaks out. There are dozens of photos of her and one stands out, one that takes her back to the past. We get a flashback going back 8 years. Before the hotel was a mess, we meet Grace's mother. They soon realize they are being hunted down, so they run away. They meet a hotel manager and he gets killed by a dude in a black hoodie. Grace calls the police and has one final moment with her mother before she gets killed by the same guy. This scene is so heartbreaking because we already know how Grace feels about this place. Now that we know the context, it makes it even more tragic. However, her mother hid something in a painting, so she goes back to find out what it was. We find a journal her mother left behind and a videotape which will become important later on. But that police officer who let her in the building is now a zombie. She gets bitten and runs away from him before stealing the keys to the emergency exit and throwing him out the building. But it's no use because someone else takes her and captures her. After this, we get the moment where we meet Leon, the one and only fan favorite character. Now, like I said in the intro, I have never played any Resident Evil game, so I'm not going to bore you with any lore I don't know. That being said, his introduction tells you a lot about who he is. Just look at when he sees Gideon, the man who captured Grace. He doesn't move, he just looks cold, which is how he will be throughout the story. Anyway, Leon goes after him and he hopes to get him and save Grace, but he fails because he decided to make more people a bunch of zombies with a serum. So it turns into a big chase throughout the streets, but he loses him. Thankfully, he knows he bought a place in Raccoon City. We then see where Grace is and she escapes but is in a lot of pain. This sequence is horrific. We get a big zombie beast, which was a hell of a thing to avoid. You have to stay quiet, otherwise it will catch you. This is where the horror of the game really shines the most. Every second counts and you must do it wisely. But after a while, Grace gets the device to turn the power back on, but the monster grabs her. We then see Leon enter the hospital where Grace is, and it's here where he tries to find Dr. Gideon. He realizes it's a trap and a swarm of zombies come after him. This scene is so satisfying. It's one of the best parts of any video game. Even ones I don't like can do this very well. Like, we are using a chainsaw to cut them down. It's so sick. Anyway, after this, Leon finds Grace. The two have a nice banter when they meet, but it's cut short when Gideon turns the gates on and locks them in. So after this, they are split up, but Leon gives Grace his gun just in case. This is one of the most difficult parts of the game, not only because we have big zombies like the chef, that was a hassle, but also because you need to find the right stuff to get out. You have limited supplies and you need to do it right. The first part is going through the West Wing. We meet a girl who looks so alone. Then we have to go through a swarm of infected. This part isn't that scary. It's most horrifying with the chef one. The rest is pretty standard. So the next part is probably going to be similar, right? Well, no, not really. The creators basically said, hold my beer, let's make this horrifying. Like that weird giant monster, what is this thing?
Good grief, he's naked!
Regardless, once you avoid that, you get into a room where you get more supplies, and it's here where Grace meets Dr. Gideon, who gives a big monologue which was kinda lazy if I'm being honest. He goes on about how she is his destiny, but there isn't a clear reason as to why, at least as of right now. But whatever, it's creepy, so I'll give them that. We then find our way into more doors, find the bricks to unlock them through puzzles, and just as we are about to get the final one, we find out a secret. That girl from earlier was held captive by Gideon. Along with the fact Grace can't read the final puzzle, she goes to grab her. And this is where the story takes a massive shift. It goes from a survival story to a story about a woman and child, Emily, bonding in an intense situation. Once Emily gets into the room, she is grabbed by that big zombie from earlier, taking Emily so Grace goes down to save her. We then swap back to Leon, who at this point feels like a little bit of an afterthought. This is one complaint I have with this story. Early on, Leon isn't used to his full potential. Later on this improves, but regardless, for now we are following Leon. And he kills that big fat monster, which was so satisfying. We then go to Gideon's office where he finds out what he's been up to and why he wants Grace, along with us finding out what disease is going through him and his Oracle type hacker Sherry. Now we are back in the POV of Grace. At this point you're probably seeing a pattern. The game's story is very non-linear. Not in a traditional sense, but in a way where we keep switching perspectives. This can either be really good or really bad. And thankfully, here it is the former. Grace is now trying to find Emily underground, and this sequence is terrific. Like, I had chills when playing these sequences, because it's so haunting and utterly believable that I was having a blast during it. We not only have to save Emily, which makes the stakes incredibly high, but you also need to avoid all the zombies. The result is a haunting and beautiful experiment. And once they escape, we get one of the best moments of the game. After escaping from the evil witch type zombie, Grace nearly loses her foot, and in the moment of silence, Emily hugs her. It's one of the nicest moments in the entire game. This is something about the game I haven't talked about much. The story has so many moments of just silent dread, but also a beating human heart, and no better is that shown than right here. So we got all the parts and the doors unlocked. We then meet a man who can fly us out of here, but the keys are inside, so Grace goes in to get it. She gets them, but not before seeing Gideon come in and talking to someone on the phone, saying that she is the one, before self-destructing the building. And once she gets out, the helicopter is swarmed by zombies, killing both the pilot and injuring Emily. We are now back in the perspective of Leon for a bit, and he helps Grace escape all the zombies. Grace now takes Emily underground, trying to get out. They eventually run into that giant witch type zombie again, and my god, seeing her lit is so satisfying. These things scare the crap out of me. But it came at a price. To turn the power back on, Grace let Emily rest. And when she comes back, she dies and turns into a giant zombie. Now she blames herself and Leon for what happened, to the point where she lets herself go with Gideon and Zeno. This is where the actions have consequences comes into play. Grace makes a choice to go get them, but in the process, it costs Emily her life. It's something any story must do, and it's on full display here. After this, we are back in the perspective of Leon for a long time. Now, as I said at the start, Leon has felt a little bit underused, but after this, you really see how in-depth he is towards the story at hand. We see how knowledgeable he is in the world, something the game so far hasn't really done. Now, in these moments in Raccoon City, not much happens. Yeah, we get stuff like Leon fighting a spider, which was such an awesome sequence, but overall, it's very slow. It's mainly Leon finding devices to get a bomb to go after Grace. And when that happens, the story picks up with us chasing Gideon. Leon then enters a building he hasn't been to in years. He starts having flashbacks and it starts to take him over. But at this moment, the reveal happens. The one that changes the entire story. They are searching for Elpis so that they can control the people. They made dozens of clones and they all failed, and the original was Grace. And I did not see this coming. We then get a flashback showing us one of the tragic stories of one of these clones named Chloe. I think this is honestly the best horror scene in the entire game. And ironically, it doesn't feature a single zombie we have seen before. Can you imagine being a child and going through this? Just seeing all of these clones turning batshit crazy at random? It would be terrifying. After this, Grace panics so much she passes out, but right before this, Leon walks in and Zeno gets her. This is why I think showing us that flashback was so crucial. If they showed us this through that monitor, it wouldn't have been as effective, but because we did that, when Grace has PTSD, we totally understand it. It's a perfect moment for the story. So Leon has to deal with the big zombie freak, and after that he heads off to chase down Grace. Then he goes further into Raccoon City where he finds a secret forest with a bunch of plant monsters. Once he gets past that, he finds a facility. It's abandoned with nothing but zombies and somewhere Grace and Zeno lie. Eventually, through security, he finds her and they escape. They both now have to split up where Grace has to move the crane, while Leon waits, and when he does, he struggles just to get up. It's a good amount of struggling and teamwork. Both have important aspects in this portion of the story because the stakes are high. They have to go so Leon can live, but also so they can destroy Elpis. Then we get the moment Grace learns the truth. She was taken in by a man named Spencer because she was an average child who needed a home. He called her My Hope. She was experimented on before moving on to her mother. It's a scene that makes most of her life a paradox, which makes it even more heartbreaking. Before anything else can happen, she learns Leon is in pain and goes to save him. Then we get the endings. Now, I'll discuss this more in the world section, so I'll give you the basics. The first ending, if you choose to destroy Elpis, Leon dies and you get a bad ending. But if you choose to release it, you get a good ending, where Leon is saved, Emily is saved, and Gideon is defeated. Now sure, the latter can be a little lazy and predictable, but considering how much this story gets right, I can let small things like this go. Both also add to the actions have consequences in some way. Ultimately, the story of Requiem is masterful. It's a simple story on the surface, but that's where the genius lie. Throw in rich themes that we all can understand and you got a great game. And I know I may have missed out on a bunch of stuff, but that's mainly because I wanted to save that for the character and world section. So let's get into that, shall we? Alright, so we established the story, now let's get into the characters of this game. Starting with Grace Ashford, who is the beating heart of this game without a shadow of a doubt. She is the broken down agent of this story who gets caught in a bad situation. At the start, she struggles walking down the rooms of a hotel where her mother was killed. That trauma clearly still haunts her to this day. And as the story progresses, you see more layers. The biggest of this is when she sees Emily for the first time. She wants to break her free, but also knows she needs to get out of here. So in a sense, she is a very conflicted character. There is a moral drive, but she knows when to pivot. But that's not to say she isn't fearless. She is terrified, because whenever you're near a zombie, she is freaking out. In any gameplay scene, she is shivering, trying to find a way to break free, and whenever a big one comes out, she loses her shit, which makes her a more relatable protagonist. Each mission, you learn more about this character, discovering her mother's secrets, and more importantly, when she finds out more about Emily. It shows a more vulnerable side to this character. She has a heart and something to keep her going, and once she dies, for the time being at least, everything goes to shit. Grace has lost everything by this point. Think about it. She has no mother, she lost Emily, and now could potentially lose Leon. So she leaves and goes help Zeno. I mean, what point is there if you have nothing to fight for? But she learns there is more to her than the people she protects. She can be better in a world full of monsters. She overcomes her trauma so she can help others do the same. In terms of how this character arc ends, I think it's perfect in both ways. If you get the bad ending, she learns how actions have consequences. If you get the good ending, you see how protective she can be. She was willing to let it out to save Leon and later finds out she can save Emily. It's a clear journey from a scared, lonely woman to someone who learns from the past regardless of the ending. Then we got Leon. Now like I said, I have not played the other games. After this I will, so if I do get something wrong, I am sorry in advance. For now, I'm just going to focus on the details from this game alone. At the start, Leon isn't used as much. For most of the first half, he's just aura farming. It's cool, sure, but in terms of pure character, there isn't much aside from subtle hints. Not until we leave the hospital do we really see important character development. At best, early on, you get an idea of what the disease is, but after that, Leon is more of a character. We see how he feels and how he hurts, how much of a badass he is, and his relationship between people like Grace and Sherry. Speaking of Sherry, I think her and Leon's dynamic is pretty good. She helps Leon a lot throughout the journey. It also helps that both of them are dealing with the virus. That definitely came out wrong, I'm sorry. My point is that they are really good mirrors to each other. And I wish he did a bit more than being Leon's guy, or in this case, woman in the chair. Now, in terms of how Leon adds to the story, he does quite a lot for Grace as a character. He is the legacy and Grace is the future. Each action they do has a reaction. For example, when Leon saves Grace, he gets captured by Gideon and they get separated. Even when it comes to the protection, he is good at remembering who he is. From the way I see it, he is a good man who will never get down. Let me explain. Towards the end, Leon is at his weakest. But even then, he moves forward until he can't. Because he knows it's what he has to do, even if it costs him his own life. No matter the cost, he is willing to protect anyone. Even in the bad ending, he says he's glad he was able to save Grace, meaning even if he dies, it's something he can be proud of. Of course, like Grace, he is a very complex character. He is legitimately ruthless, but he also has a code of honor he lives by. And of course, there is his trauma. When he is at his old place in Raccoon City, you see flashbacks. That is where this character lies. He is a brave cop who is willing to protect anyone despite his trauma. It's a good companion towards Grace, and it's no wonder why he is a fan favorite. Now, before we move on to the world, I want to talk about Dr. Gideon. This character is frankly haunting. At the start, each scene he is in has a certain level of gravitas. Something a great villain needs is presence, and this dude has it to a T. When he takes in Grace and turns in all those people into zombies, he sells the threat without even saying a word. Then when he gives his monologue, you can understand where he is coming from. Overdone? Sure, but one that can be effective. However, if there's one thing that bugs me is how quickly he is thrown away. We are to assume he is dead from an explosion, then he comes back to the good ending. Like, imagine if the player picked the bad ending and never the first. That would seriously piss me off, because then he would just be a waste. Even if you look at Gideon by the end, it's a little ridiculous. He randomly kills Xeno and decides to take over the world. It's the Marvel final battle in video game form. Now, is this a big deal? No, I'm nitpicking at best. It's a masterclass overall, but towards the end the character does fall flat a bit. However, none of that really bugs me because overall the strengths between Grace and Leon make the game work so damn well. And even if Gideon starts off pretty well and ends a little poorly, that at best is just a random nitpick. Character-wise, this is some fantastic character work. So now let's get into the world of this game, which is something that took me by surprise. Because for most of the game, we are in one location. Most of the game takes place in a hospital, the one we have been talking about all this video. It is the thesis statement for the entire game. The hospital is not just the place we start off at, it acts as a reflection towards the characters. Grace is in here and she is scared shitless. She is breathing uncontrollably and just trying to get her and Emily out of there. Leon, on the other hand, is perfectly normal. He moves with confidence and finds a good way to escape. In terms of aesthetic, this place is a masterpiece. Each scene is layered with fantastic visuals, and of course the horror sequences. Things like where you have to deal with the butcher zombie, the scene where a zombie brings a bulldozer into the garage, and the screaming lady. They find a way to make each one stand out and scare us as the viewers. The first section of this mission is pretty difficult in its own nutshell, because it's hard to understand what you need to do. When you get to the West Wing, it's simple. But once you need to figure out how to get into the East Wing, how to get the pieces to open the door, that's when things get challenging. However, I think this demonstrates Grace's struggles because when you play as Leon, it's basically too easy. Sure, you have the advantage of knowing where to go and when, but even then, as Grace, you need to keep supplies in check. Whereas Leon, you don't really have that to the same extent. Then you got Raccoon City. If the hospital was the thesis, then Raccoon City is the connective tissue to build off of it. The hospital was the trauma for Grace, Raccoon City is the trauma for Leon, because it's why he is who he is. We mentioned when he was having those war flashbacks, and in those moments, it shows you everything you need to know about this character, even if you're like me and have never played the games. In the beginning, we see how this place is torn apart. We get to witness a big spider attack, then Leon trying to get the bomb to get Grace. We get gas, climb buildings, fight droves of zombies, and get materials to get to the other side. Which brings us to the motorcycle sequence. While not the best scene, it's one of the most thrilling sequences. It's a good trick on the audience, but it also gives us some fun action before the horror comes back. Now the forest is a weird one. In context of the story, it makes perfect sense. They need somewhere to hide the facility where Elpis is located, but in terms of how it's executed, I think it could have been done a little bit better, because once it comes into play, it's a bit simple to get through. Sure, it's scary, but compared to what came before, it feels a little bit out of place. The facility is where everything comes together though. Everything we praise about the world is present here, plus some things I didn't know I loved till I saw it. Technically, Raccoon City is a feast to behold. If you want to have a blast searching through the ruins of this place, you can do that with ease. There is not a single flaw in any terms of the design. Each detail is handled with care. In terms of zombies, you get the basic infected, who will need to be shot a few times to be taken down, the big creepy elderly zombies, the big chunk of zombies, the zombies that are singers, the chef, and the list goes on and on. Each one varies in difficulties of their own. The bigger, the harder, the smaller, the easier. Now, weaponry is also crucial for the story. You need to find a good amount of materials to make it out alive. You got the Requiem that Leon gave to Grace, a standard pistol, a loaded shotgun, sniper rifles, knives, chainsaws, submachine guns, and so much more. For each, you need to remember what you got, because if you don't have enough room, you gotta get rid of it. This is where the chest comes in handy so you don't lose anything crucial. But now let's get to the point everyone is talking about, that being the ending. I love it when games do this because you never know what you're gonna get. Could be bad, could be terrible. Let's start with the bad ending, because this is one where I mentioned earlier the actions have consequences. Grace decides to destroy it, but it comes at a price. Leon dies as a result, and then the game just ends. It's heartbreaking for sure, but it goes so quickly that I was legit shocked. Because while it comes out of the blue, it does fit the narrative quite nicely, even if the ending is awful. Then if you decide to let Elpis out, you get to save Grace, Leon, and Emily. It's a bittersweet ending to a story that is filled with trauma, and the reason it works is because it's another moment that makes you think about it. It's a quiet moment where the good guys keep going, no matter the cost, because they know how important it is, not just for them, but for the world. Ultimately, I think the gameplay and world are some of the weakest aspects of this game, but even then it's still pretty damn good, and I think that speaks volumes. But if you put all three of these key things together we discussed, then one question remains. What makes this game a masterpiece? Let's bring it all home. I have watched a story from tragedy to heartfelt drama in the middle of the apocalypse. I've seen two characters grow and have complex arcs, and a world that, while the weakest of the three, is still very damn good. And you put all of these three things together, you get a masterclass in video game storytelling. To bring it all together, all we discussed comes down to three things. The story works not because it's fresh, but because it's simple. We have seen hospitals and zombie projects, we have seen these types of story beats, but in the themes, that is where this story hits home. The characters, on the other hand, are the beating heart of the game. Grace is a relatable character whose trauma we see head on. We as the viewer connect with her even more as a result. Leon dealing with his past while also dealing with a disease he can't outrun is compelling as hell. In those moments that go head on into those is where the game shines the most in its character work. The world is the weakest link in the bunch, but it's still really good. And it all works because they feed into one another. The themes go directly to all three of them perfectly. The character arcs feed into the story and the world. And going head on into all of these is what makes it so damn effective. Resident Evil Requiem is simply a horror masterpiece. After years of my friends praising these games, I can finally understand exactly why people love this world. All from its gripping story, morally jaded and likable characters, as well as gameplay that, while nothing new, is still a blast to go through. All of which leads to this game being damn near perfect. Anyway, that is a wrap on this video. If you guys enjoyed me glazing a story in this world, let me know if you want to see me go through the rest. And if you are still here, you're my kind of gaming fan to start with, let me know your thoughts on this game down in the comments below. Is this game perfect or is it a mess? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure to hit that like button, and if you enjoy this content, we post way more on the Film Rocket channel. It does the same thing we do here, but for cinematic events. We are dropping a video on Star Wars over there shortly, so make sure you subscribe to both of our channels so you don't miss future deep dives. But that's all for me. Thanks for watching, and take care.